This is the Hockey Podcast Network, your home for hockey talk on every team in the NHL.
Calgary Flames fans, it's time for Flames Unfiltered. Entertaining and controversial hockey talk with your host, Brad Baroud. The break is done. Controversy's gone. Let's play some hockey. Let's win some games, boys. The break is done. Wow, doesn't it seem like it's been forever since we've had Flames hockey? It's Flames Unfiltered, episode number 20. I am the host of the show, Brad Baroud. We are recording on December 4th, 2019. It is a Wednesday night. This podcast releases on the Hockey Podcast Network Thursday morning, and you can also check it out on FlamesUnfiltered.com, along with all kinds of other Calgary Flames news. Please check that website out. All right, let's talk hockey. The break's done. Whew, seems like a long time. Now, was this break good or bad? Was the timing right or was the timing wrong? I look at it as a positive. I really do. Players got some time at home. Travis Hamonic said it best the other day when he said, this team hasn't been home with their families at all. And they really haven't. This schedule has been rough. Not making excuses, but it's been rough. I also think it's a positive because this team, along with their 2 days away from the rink, got some much-needed practice time with new coach Geoff Ward. We saw some tinkering with the lines. We'll talk about that later on in the show. And the players got to chill out and kind of relax a little bit. Put this stuff behind us. This team has faced more off-ice adversity this year than I can remember a team in a long, long, long time. It's time to put all this behind us. Now, I heard some naysayers say the timing was horrible because, heck, we were on a win streak. I'm okay with that. I think this team needed this break. I think this fan base needed a break, and I think I needed a break. We need to escape from the Flames and the drama and all the silliness that was going on. And now after all these troubles are gone, I think expectations are gone. Now that doesn't mean I don't expect this team to do well. I mean that it's almost like a clean slate now. Now it's time for this team, this group, to gel together and move forward and play out their own destiny. I see a new attitude. There's a new attitude with me. It's a fresh start. It's really time now to be positive and get things rolling.
Every team, everywhere. The Hockey Podcast Network.
Hey, Flames Unfiltered is proud to be part of the Hockey Podcast Network. The Hockey Podcast Network it's amazing. It's podcasts from all 31 teams twice a week. Podcasts drop every Monday and Thursday mornings. You can listen to hockey talk on all 31 teams. It's amazing. Another great thing that the Hockey Podcast Network has is Terry Ryan. Former NHLer and entertainer, author. This guy does it all. You've heard him on the Spittin' Chicklets podcast. He is hilarious. He has joined the network and has a show twice a month called Tales with TR, a hockey podcast. Episode 1 is available and out right now. Check it out. This is usually the part of the show where I talk game recaps. But I got nothing. Since our last show, Flames haven't played. But Thursday night, the Buffalo Sabres head into the Scotiabank Saddledome for a big matchup. Buffalo sits 13-10-5, third in the Atlantic, coming off a big win against New Jersey. It's going to be a big one. Joining the show right now, we have a great interview with Taylor Nigrel from Blue&Gold Makes Dahlin podcast, a Buffalo Sabres podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network. Thanks for joining me, Taylor. And Buffalo sits 13-10-5 right now, 31 points. They're third in the Atlantic Division. The team got off to an 8-2 start and was going like gangbusters, and then they've cooled off. Something we saw last year from the team. What do you think the biggest reason for the cool-off has been?
Well, I think the biggest thing was when they were 8-1-1, they definitely were getting a lot of puck luck. Carter Hutton was playing like the best goalie in the league, which he's obviously not. And pretty much everything was going right, which it never will be. And obviously they had a big swoon. They lost 7 in a row. And I think at one point it was something like 9 of 11 or something like that. But this past couple weeks, I think they've kind of stabilized to being what the best version of how this year could have gone, being kind of a team that's on the fringes of the playoffs, as opposed to them being 8-1-1, or like last year being first in the NHL after November.
You're definitely coming off a big win, 7-1 over New Jersey. And, in that game, I watched it and I thought Buffalo was like everything they touched just turned to gold that night. And they looked like world beaters, and kind of fun to see that. I obviously follow mostly the Flames in the Western Conference, but if I watch quite a bit of Eastern Conference too. And Buffalo has always been kind of one of those teams that I kind of, you kind of cheer for Buffalo. Not because they've struggled so much, it's just that it seems like this organization just gets the worst luck of any franchise out there. And I'm hoping that this team can pull it together, make it to the playoffs this year. Just the start of November started off losing 9 out of 10 to start the month. Is this team capable of gelling and pulling it together to make the playoffs this year?
I think so, based on 2 big things. The first one is that the way things are going right now, it doesn't look like the East is going to have 8 good teams, or 8 teams that have like 97 points like you've seen the last couple of years. The other thing is that they've already been impressive in the fact that they've bounced back and started to look good. They haven't fallen off a cliff like they did last year. Basically, last year, after the 10-game win streak, they played like a 60-point team for the rest of the year. They played like the worst team in the league. And this year, they've impressed in how Eichel's continued to be a steady hand, both scoring, passing, playing at both ends, how Victor Olofsson's emerged as a secondary scoring option, how Jeff Skinner's been good despite playing with kind of mediocre or sub-mediocre line mates, how Ralph Kruger seems to, tinker in ways that make things better. Not 100% of the time, but seems to make good moves sometimes, including most recently kind of scaling back the minutes of Rasmus Ristolainen and trying some different things on defense. And it just, last year, they completely fell off a cliff. And this year, it seems like like I said before, they've stabilized. So I think it's a possibility. On the other hand, there's a lot of teams that are right around them points-wise that you would probably say are more talented, like Toronto. Tampa's actually behind them right now. You would probably think that those teams will pass them, but it'll be interesting. There's no reason they shouldn't be right around there. And if they're going to make the playoffs, it'll be because they've continued to – Ralph Kruger has continued to tinker to see what works. Jack Eichel's continued to – be a dominant player, a top 10 scorer, and ideally a couple guys in the defense like Henry Jokiharju and Rasmus Dahlin have, in Jokiharju's case, continued to play well, and Dahlin coming back from injury and then starting to play well for the first time this year.
You mentioned Jack Eichel, and he sits currently with 17 goals, 21 assists, 38 points. That's a heck of a start for Jack Eichel, and I've always really, really liked this player, but I felt like I was waiting for him to really come out and explode like he has this year. Do you consider this, even though he's been okay, and I shouldn't even use the word okay, he's been good in previous years, do you kind of, though, consider this as a breakout year for him?
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, he's on pace for 100 points. That would be huge. It'd be the first year he'd really be, I think, top 10 in points, if I'm pretty sure, in the NHL. And he's had previous opportunities. His second year, he was actually, I think, 11th in the league in points per game, but he missed the first 2 months with that kind of freak ankle injury. And last year seemed like it was primed to be a breakout year. And it was his best year to date, but it wasn't quite what it could have been because of he kind of had a slump in the second half of the year. So, yeah, this is the best he's looked. And I think in some ways it has to do with being a good leader. That's huge. He seems like he's super well respected now, but also how he seems to be the kind of guy that can get you either the big goal or the big play right when it's needed. It's not just winning on him kind of having a big rush into the zone or making a good pass. It's doing little things that you see veteran guys make, the plays you don't make when you're 18. I think a good example was the last game against Toronto, or last week against Toronto. I don't remember which Toronto defenseman it was, but he came in the zone. He just took the puck off the guy's stick and then turned his kind of backside to him, brushed him off the puck, then skated around it a little loop behind the net for a couple minutes to draw some people to him, passed it out to Olofsson, and Olofsson scored top shelf. And I think that's the kind of play that you don't see from an 18-year-old. You don't see that from almost anyone. And those are the kind of things he's doing this year to kind of solidify himself as an all-star for sure and probably a top 10 scorer. Not a Hart Trophy candidate or anything like that, but someone that you kind of made it worth it to tank for a couple of years ago.
Well, as Jack Eichel goes this year is probably where the Sabres will go, and he's off to a great start. He signed a monster deal in Buffalo, and I've talked to a lot of people in the hockey world that thought it was a good contract, and I've talked to a lot that were like, wow, that was a little higher than I thought. Where did you see it, and how do the Buffalo fans how do they feel about the contract now, I guess?
Now I think it's almost not discussed at all because it's just he makes $10 million, he's worth $10 million. When it came out, there was definitely some hand-wringing among some people thinking oh, wow, he hasn't really done anything yet. They hadn't made obviously they made the play and come close to making the playoffs. But I think he got it after 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. It was kind of the summer before his third year.
It was early, I thought.
Yeah, so they did it so he wouldn't be a pending RFA during his third year. And at that point, it was wow, this could be a bad contract or could be a good one. By the end of the deal, it'll seem like a bargain. I think if he keeps up this way, $10 million will obviously seem like a lot less against the cap by that point. So I think his contract almost I don't know if I've heard about it all year really, just because he's been playing well, so he's earned it, but it's also not it's a super bargain right now. It's just a fair deal. And right now, I think around here, even though you hadn't heard much of the rumblings about it yet, there's been a little bit of talk about Skinner's contract and whether that was wise.
Yeah. I really like Skinner as a player, and I think he's going to be that guy that's going to quietly get the job done for you. But yeah, I can see it's always funny how contracts go, and anytime somebody gets a big contract like Eichel did, he instantly becomes under the microscope, and right after he got that contract he didn't really produce, but now this year I can see why the talks have quieted. You also talked about your rookie Victor Olofsson. Talk to us a little bit about his success this year.
It's been really interesting because as we kind of discuss in our podcast all the time, the Sabres have been unbelievably bad at drafting past the first round. They've had almost no success. The best guys this decade have been Jake McCabe, Marcus Foligno, guys that aren't our fringe NHLers really. Yep. But he's a 7th round pick. And so coming into the year it was, maybe they could get something out of him, maybe a good training camp. And they stuck him on the top line there with Eichel and Reinhart. And he scored those 6 power. And he actually played a little bit at the end of last year, but that was kind of, the season was over. People weren't really paying attention. And he scored 6 power play goals this year in, I think, 10 games or 12 games, something crazy like that. And it was immediately kind of people oh, wow, we got this star. And then there was a big step back from him. And it became evident that obviously he wasn't always going to score a power play goal every 2 games. But at the same time, he was struggling to even strength a little bit. It seemed like maybe they should move him to the, a little bit fewer minutes. He probably shouldn't be playing against other top lines. But he's really in the past, I'd say a month or less, he started scoring at even strength. He started to show off his skill and especially his deadly shot. And he seems like he belongs now, not as the best player in the first line, but a guy that can play and hold his own on the first line. And frankly, he's already probably the best late-round pick the Sabres have had in 10-plus years.
Drafting it was a tricky thing in Calgary for a long time too, and I still don't know if we're out of the woods on that problem in Calgary. Goaltending. Let's talk a little bit about your goaltenders. You've got 2 goaltenders that have split time. Carter Hutton was signed, was it 2 years ago now, and kind of brought in to be your guy. This year, both Ullmark and Hutton have both played 14 games. How would you sum up the goaltending in Buffalo this year?
It's pretty mediocre overall, and it's come in the form of Hutton obviously started incredibly well, and he's had some real tough games lately. Ullmark, I guess, has been more steady, but still kind of, I would say, kind of mediocre. I haven't looked at their numbers recently, but I have to guess they're right in the middle of the league. Hutton, he kind of, when they signed that 3-year deal, you kind of knew this was something where either Ullmark was going to sink or swim, and if he wasn't going to emerge as a really good starting goalie, that Hutton would be there and be the guy that could be a starter. At the same time, Ullmark hasn't been bad. He hasn't played himself out of a job at all, but at the same time, he hasn't done well enough to take the job, which I think has led to the Sabres kind of putting their faith in the future in Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who right now is a few years away. He's still in the ECHL, so I think it's going to be a weird thing where even if they're totally mediocre for the rest of the year, next year you're going to see those same guys probably in net, I would imagine. Maybe it's Hutton and someone else, but I think you might see Hutton and Ullmark again before they even give Luukkonen a real shot at that. But I guess it's been fine, nothing to complain about. It's just a little weird because there was a good run pretty much my whole life of reliable goaltending. You had Hasek, and that led to a brief period with Marty Biron, and then right into the Ryan Miller era. And then since
we're all three great goalies.
Yeah, oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, you had six Vezinas for Hasek, a Vezina for Miller, and Biron was, pretty good in his own right. And since then, it's been tough. Robin Lehner, Jonas Enroth, the tank years with 100 different goalies, and now trying these guys. So it's been a different experience for sure.
Right. Adequate this year, though.
Adequate, yeah. Yes, definitely.
Just weeks ago, the Calgary Flames did beat the Sabres 3-2, but in a very close game. I thought it was an evenly matched game. And how do you see Thursday night's game going?
I think it'll probably be pretty similar. I feel like Calgary, to me, I think has more talent than the Sabres, but this year hasn't gone nearly as well as last year did, obviously. But I think you're going to see that same type of game that you saw pretty close. I wouldn't be surprised if it went to overtime again.
Yeah, I think both these teams match up good. And I agree. I would agree that, like, on paper, Calgary looks better. Probably not, obviously, meeting the expectations that the fans in Calgary had and everybody in the hockey world had. But I think it seems like when these two teams play, it's always a pretty grinded out game, just like we saw a couple weeks ago. Calgary and Buffalo don't play that often. So what are your thoughts on the amount of games Western and Eastern Conference should play against each other? Or do you think we should go back to the way it kind of used to be, where you played them once a year and you focus more on your divisional matchups? How do you feel about that?
I kind of like the schedule the way it is now. I think it's pretty perfect because I think, if I'm not mistaken, you see each Western team twice, once at your place, once at their place.
A home and away with each team in the other conference.
Yeah, I like that kind of setup. It's still kind of rare to see a team, and so it's kind of an event when you have a team come into town, and then but it's also like you do get to see them. It's not like, oh, I haven't seen an LA Kings game in 7 years or something like that. So yeah. I like the way it's set up. Since I live in Buffalo, I've tried to go. Me and my brother have both tried to see every team and at different points. And the hardest ones to get to the Western Conference teams, which makes it all the more special or rare to be able to see them.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings on it. I feel like when I'm preparing for a week of Flames hockey, it's always fun to see Vancouver and Edmonton on that list. But there is teams, like, I don't know, for some reason, I always get kind of excited for watching them play Buffalo and Toronto and Washington. And there's just a couple of those teams that is just kind of fun out east to watch play, because it's always an exciting game. And you do get to know some of the players, and obviously I don't get to see Jack Eichel play as much as I do, a player in the Western Conference. So it is fun to get to see and learn a little bit more about those players. When you look, final question for you, and I'll let you get on with your evening. I really do appreciate you joining me tonight.
Oh, yeah.
When you look at your expectations for the Sabres this year, what will make this a successful season? What will the Sabres have to achieve for you to go, okay, that's what I wanted?
Playoffs, yeah. It's been 8 years, and that's too long. It's the longest drought. And I think it's not too much to ask to make the playoffs in the NHL. Almost a little bit over half the teams make it. There's no reason, especially with the position they're in now, with having a decent amount of talent, having some of your best guys, aside from Dahlin being in their prime years, I don't think there's any reason they couldn't make the playoffs the way things have set up with Toronto kind of have a tough start to the year. Philadelphia, Columbus, teams that have competed for the playoffs recently, not running away with anything. I think this is, I would, if they got close to the playoffs, if they got like 90 points and missed, that would somehow be their best year by far since the beginning of the decade, really. So I would really like that. That's what I need to see. I wouldn't be super unhappy with the low 90s, but getting into the mid 90s, getting into the playoffs, that's what I really want to see.
Yeah, I think that'd definitely be a big stepping stone for Buffalo. And it's a year where you look at the standings, whether it be the Western Conference or the Eastern Conference, there's a lot up in the air. We just went past American Thanksgiving, which is kind of a benchmark point. There's a lot of things in the air. There's only like 2 or 3 teams. When I look at each conference, I say, I know they'll be in. So it's going to be a fun stretch run. Oh
yeah, definitely. And I will say, I actually went to a Sabres Calgary game, and I think it was December 2013. And I would say out of all the games I've been to, that one had probably the least star talent in it all. The Sabres' best player on the ice might have been Matt Molson, and I think that was a first-year Sean Monahan. So I'll say
those are the bad years for both of us.
at least we're both looking a lot better than we were 6 years ago at this time.
Well, that's definitely the case, and hopefully both of our teams will make the playoffs this year, and we can have a little bit of fun later than just the April first week that oftentimes we both end up getting to go golfing because our teams are out. But thanks for joining me today, Taylor. I really, really appreciate it. It's always fun to talk with teams out in the Eastern Conference, and I look forward to a big game Thursday night as Buffalo comes into the Saddle Dome to take on the Calgary Flames.
All right, thank you for having me.
Inside Edge Hockey News. Bringing you inside the game.
All right, now it's time to talk Calgary stuff. Geoff Ward takes over as head coach. What advice do I have for the new coach? I got a little bit. I got some thoughts. And here they are. Let's look at goaltending first. It's been great. No complaints. Everything's good. The one thing I would suggest is that you watch how much you lean on Rittich. You know, we brought in Cam Talbot for a reason. And I think Cam Talbot's been pretty darn good this year. I don't have a lot of negatives to say about his play. I think most of the time when he's played, the team hasn't played real well in front of him. Hardly his fault. We need this guy. He's been good. So just watch out and don't lean on Rittich too much. Defense, leave it alone. Dead serious. Hamanek's coming back. Brody's back. And since Brody's been back, it's like we got a whole new TJ Brody. He's been good. He looks happy. Looks happy to be out there. Let's talk about this defense right now. I would have Giordano and Brody back together. It's working. Hanifin, Hamanek, it's working. Shillington, Anderson, it works. Stone is your guy in that you have on the backside that can come in, and Stone is no slouch. I like his play this year. Forwards, what advice do I have? Move Lindholm to center, build that depth down the middle, and quit focusing so much on Milan Lucic. I'll tell you the lines that Mr. Geoff Ward has been running at practice. I know this was the practice lines on Tuesday. He had Tkachuk with Lindholm at center and Mangiapane on the right side. He had Backlund centering Dubé and Monahan. Interesting. He had Ryan centering Gaudreau and Lucic. And he had Jankowski centering Frolik and Reeder. Well, what's my advice? My advice is to go with Lindholm at center, but I would run Lindholm, Monahan, Backlund, Ryan. I would move out Jankowski some way, somehow. Or sit him. It's fine. He's a good guy that can come and fill in. The wingers, I'd have Lucic on the fourth line, shifting out, in and out with Zarnik or Reeder. I'd like Tkachuk, Lindholm, Mangiapane. I don't mind that line. I would like to see Frolik with maybe Dubé and Backlund. I think that would probably be good line. I'd like to see the Ryan Lucic Reader. I think that would be a crew that would fit. And you know what? We have good news coming. Sam Bennett's going to be back. He'll help. Austin Zarnik is on the way back. He'll help. Well, my biggest advice to Geoff Ward right now would be move Lindholm to center like he has at practice. And I would make sure you didn't focus on Lucic so much. Use him when you need his presence, but you don't need him out filling a bunch of minutes. He hasn't scored this year yet, and I think he will. And I don't think he's been horrible. And his work ethic has been very, very, very good. I don't think he's been a detriment to the team. I don't think he's brought a lot to the team either. Expectations have been clouded since the controversy. Focus day to day, playing positive hockey. And I think Geoff Ward might be taking this positiveness to a whole new level as they've been playing. Rasmus Anderson's been in charge, to my knowledge, of some music at practice, which has went anywhere from Tone Loc to Elton John to Kenny Chesney. And I kind of like it. I think it's been kind of a good, funny side note that the Flames have done during this break. I really do. I think it's lightened the mood with fans. I think it's lightened the mood with the players. God, we've needed that. This year hasn't been a lot of fun, Flames fans. It hasn't. I got to talk every couple days about this, and I love talking the Flames, and I live and die by how they're doing. And there's been some struggles this year. I've been frustrated. My biggest worry for Geoff Ward right now is really one thing. And that's figuring out this Johnny Gaudreau struggles. I'm not sure what the solution for sure is, but I do know that we need to figure that out. Johnny Gaudreau is so critical to this team, and Johnny Gaudreau needs to be doing his part.
NHL news, opinions, and controversy.
Flames news. That's some good news, actually. Really good news. David Rittich named number 2 star of the week last week. He stopped 95 of 101 shots he faced, compiling a 2-0-1 record, 1.94 goals against average, and a save percentage of .941 in 3 games. It's pretty good. 5 out of possible 6 standings points for the Flames. Things are looking up. And Rittich has been very good this year. He's been by far the best story in Calgary. By far. Matt Stajan, after 1,003 NHL games, parts of 9 seasons, calls it quits and retires. Matt Stajan was a class act while he was in Calgary. His teammates loved him. The community loved him. My greatest Matt Stajan memory was in 2015 Stanley Cup playoff goal. It's one I will never forget. I jumped up. It was amazing. It was amazing. That was a fun series against Vancouver. And that goal stands out as one of the greatest memories of that series. Matt Stajan, we wish you the best outside of retirement. You were a great Flame.
Every team, everywhere. The Hockey Podcast Network.
Hey, the Hockey Podcast Network and Flames Unfiltered are very excited to announce a partnership with Gong Show Hockey Apparel. Check out the Hockey Podcast Network on Twitter. Check out the contest and win yourself some Gong Show apparel. Check them out.
Every team, everywhere. The Hockey Podcast Network.
Let's take a little quick trip around the National Hockey League and talk about some things other than Flames. One thing we want to talk about, Jake Allen, the St. Louis Blues. In his last 6 games, and this guy's been the whipping boy of the NHL and for sure St. Louis. People there have been all over this guy, bad-mouthing this guy. It's crazy with the abuse this guy's taken. He's found his way now in St. Louis, and he's 4-0-2 in his last 6 games, a 1.78 goals against average, .946 save percentage. He boasts a shutout in that. happy for Jake Allen. Really happy for Jake Allen. Let's talk about this Pacific Division. It is a clustered mess right now. This division quite possibly is going to be the most fun division to watch down the stretch. A quick rattle off the standings for you, fill in where the Flames are, and kind of break down how close this is. Finally, the Flames have always had games in hand all year. Or no, have not had games in hand. They've had more games played than anybody else. Finally, everybody is caught up at 29 games, except for Anaheim and LA. They're one game back of the Flames. We can live with one game. For a while, other teams in this division were 3 games ahead. Calgary was 3 games more played than anybody else. That makes it hard, and it makes the standings look a little bit skewed. As they stand right now, today, before games started, Edmonton sits atop with 37 points. Arizona, surprising everybody, at 36. Vegas at 34. Vancouver at 32. San Jose all the way up to 31. Calgary sits at 30. Anaheim at 28. LA at 24. What that means? Literally, Calgary could win this division. They're 7 points back. They could finish last in this division. They're 6 points back of that. That's a 13-point spread from top to bottom. Now, I don't think Anaheim and LA are going to push. But, man, that's some tight standings. Arizona's really shocking everybody. They're 9-3-3 on the road. Is that not crazy? Team's sneaky good. And now I hear they're in on the Taylor Hall. That shakes everything all up, huh? Edmonton continues to... The hated rival up north continues to keep racking up points. 7-3-2 at home, 10-6-1 on the road. Knocked off Ottawa last night. Vegas. We all thought Vegas might have that struggle this year and be dead. They're still not playing all that great, but have won 4 in a row. They got the Islanders up next. Vancouver seems to go back and forth. Win one, lose one, win one, lose one. They sit 2 points ahead of Calgary at 32. San Jose, out of nowhere, back from the dead, is back up. Martin Jones playing better. This division's crazy good. Crazy fun to watch. Fan question. It's going to be a Facebook poll this week. And just with all that controversy and everything, I just kind of wanted to get a barometer on where everybody thought this team was. Because we kind of forgot about hockey for a while. And it's damn good to come back and just talk about hockey and not have to talk about problems. So I posed a question on a couple of Facebook groups, Calgary Flames Facebook groups that I'm part of. And I'm going to plug them, the Flames Hub and Flames fan page. Both great. I love talking to other Flames fans. Posted one poll, same question on both of them. Got tons and tons of responses, over 400 responses. And the question is, with the controversy behind the team, will this team make the playoffs now? And a whopping 92% of the people polled think the Flames will make the playoffs. 8% think they won't. That's a lot. It's a high percentage. Way higher than I thought. And I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer, but I'd say we're sitting at about a 65% chance of making the playoffs. I don't know. Call me Debbie Downer. Game previews. 2 games to preview before we record our next show. It starts Thursday night. Calgary takes on Buffalo in Calgary. Buffalo, 28 games played, 13-10-5, 31 points, third in the Atlantic. They're coming off a 7-1 victory Monday night to the New Jersey Devils. Totally pounding them. They looked like world beaters that night. Buffalo looked really, really good. Calgary, 29 games played, 13-12-4, 30 points. Good enough for 6 in the Pacific. They're coming off a 3-1 win Saturday night over Ottawa, in which Calgary, I thought, looked pretty good. I wouldn't give them great, but I'd say pretty good. That game was followed up by a game Saturday night, the late game on Hockey Night in Canada. In Calgary, Los Angeles comes to town for the 3rd meeting of the year between these two. And let me tell you, LA has handled Calgary this year. LA wins 4-3 in Calgary early in October in an overtime game where our buddy Drew Doughty gets the game winner. And then later in October, just a couple weeks later, Out in LA, Calgary gets dominated, completely dominated. I remember this game as almost a low point of the year. 4-1, got manhandled. It's time for Calgary to get some revenge on these LA Kings, who are so low in the standing. We should not. Should we be worrying about this game right now? And why are we worrying about the LA Kings? But I just know that that's going to end up being a good game on Saturday night. I just know it is. It always is. It's time to get some revenge back at them. And you know what? I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to hear any talk about the Kachuk Doughty thing. It's done. I'm done talking about that. I'm done. I used to love that, but I don't love it anymore, especially not this year. Because I think it takes the Flames off their own game. It's dumb. I'm excited to get back to normal Calgary Flames hockey. Thanks for listening to Flames Unfiltered. Check us out on the Hockey Podcast Network. Also, check out FlamesUnfiltered.com. Fire me over a tweet at FlameUnfiltered. I love talking hockey with Flames fans. It's time for the Flames to go out and get some points. Get connected. Flames Unfiltered can be found on Twitter at FlameUnfiltered. And also make sure you check out our Facebook page at Flames Unfiltered. Check out host Brad Brood on Twitter at Brad Brood. And if you like what you hear, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. You can find Flames Unfiltered on all the major podcast players. Consider subscribing to the Inside Edge Hockey News on Patreon. That'll get you exclusive content and much more. Thanks again and enjoy the hockey. Thanks for tuning in to Flames Unfiltered. Check back for more action-packed Calgary Flames talk.
You're listening to the Hockey Podcast Network on Twitter at HockeyPodNet. New episodes every Monday and Thursday. Download at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts from.
This has been a production of Inside Edge Hockey News Radio, brought to you by the Hockey Podcast Network. This production is copyrighted and distributed by the Inside Edge Hockey Media Group.